Hi, Chris.
Hey, Kerry.
Did you have the same problem I had? I can't find a link for this meeting.
Yeah, same. So
Yeah,
all good. We figured it out.
yeah, we did.
Two
Who
of us
knows
did
when?
anyway.
Who knows where Marc is? So how are you? It's ages since I've seen you.
It's been ages for sure. So since we last spoke, I have did the trip to Guatemala, did a road trip from Texas back to Arizona, and full blast and stuff happening here. So yeah, it's all good. There's a lot of energy around what's happening here locally. So it's
Right.
yeah. How about with you?
Oh, I've just been, I don't know. I've got loads of health problems, Chris.
Oh, for real?
I'm not. Oh yeah, I am.
It
But
says recording.
Oh,
Yeah,
you were
just
recording.
so
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad someone is. All right. So I just turned mine on. Okay. Keep
yeah,
going.
and then like the land, the work, figuring out how to create a land trust, or you could put it in a different package, how to, however you wanted to, about whatever the thing is there about land. I mean, my deal about land trust per se is it's the only way I know of to have the commons regenerated, where you can have affordable housing and affordable small farming. So that's why I go to land trust. But you might put it in a different context. But that one's going to take a while. You're going to have to get a bunch of data. You're going to have to find out who owns it. You're going to have to map it. You're going to have to create a company and so forth. So that was one thing. The other thing that got discussed was the possibility, and it was vague. I mean, we were just playing with it, but the idea that Leos or regenerate Sonora, and it doesn't matter to me where it sits. It has to sit in the right place. Leo would have a role, but essentially it is an incubator of actual new companies. We're talking about how that would happen, and one, I mean, it could happen 4 or 5 different ways. The one that got discussed was that the skill to start a company is there. So essentially whoever starts it owns it. And then Chris made some comments I'd love to explore more over time but that company gets transferred out of, their domain. Somebody else owns it. But it's a way to start something, maybe 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 2 would succeed and become viable businesses. It would be owned by the entity. And then they would, on the successful ones, they would make some money because they would transfer the ownership to somebody else. And it would be a way of having some revenue to keep going. Because a lot of the discussion was about how to get revenue. And I always bring up, I probably sound like, throwing cold water on it, but I always bring up, because of my own experience, the two-edged sword is worse than that of grant funding. Because when it runs out, unless they gave you the money to do something you already wanted to do, if it's their money for their project and you're being used to make them look better, I don't think it's worth the time or money. But that's me. But Chris is looking for a way to to have at least a good part of his income come from doing the great work he's doing. And we're just trying to, all 4 of us are trying to think of ways to to make that happen. So that's my, and everyone was thoughtful and, had different experiences. I thought it was a great call, actually. Would have been better with Kerry, but she was asleep.
when was this, Marc?
I was out walking, so it must have been, I don't know, 3 or 4 o'clock.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Anyway, it was and there was enough diversity of opinion, that it was really perfect, because from my opinion, because Chris, Chris gets to pick and choose what he wants, but he got some diverse opinions. And I don't think it was about the other 3 of us getting to be friends. We were all there to support. I mean, I'm not opposed to that, but we were really there the conversation was to give Chris ideas.
Mm. So what I hear you saying is basically about creating an incubator.
A business incubator
Yeah,
that
a
actually
business.
does something, yeah.
Yeah, and is that within regenerating Sonora, within the existing remit, or something separate?
It'd be within it, yeah. As easy it is to see that being the case, it makes sense, yeah.
Mm. Mm. Well, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, and if we use the map that you put together, Mark, around the various points of infrastructure, social needs, energy, those sorts of categories would be a really interesting place to explore amongst others for like possible opportunities, you know.
Can you bring that up? And it should have a link, and share the screen. It should have a link that says arrows diagram that you could click on. But share your screen so I don't even know if it has that on it. But I think it'd be worth 5 minutes to in arrows go through it and background color the ones that make sense, just to make a step forward.
So as I'm looking for that link here, I'll say that there's like a lot of really good things that could come from this business incubator, because there's a bunch of services that we just don't have in Superior that I know that we need. Like, I'll just give you one example. Right now, if you have a mouse in your house and you live in Superior, there's no one to call locally that can handle that situation. And when we talk with people from the town over, they say, yeah, you know, we can help you with your mouse in your house, but like all we're going to do is set up some traps and monitor them, and there's really nothing more we could do. And it costs kind of a lot of money for us. And I just thought, oh my God, like if there was some like monthly maintenance to, like, I found out that if you get Tabasco sauce and soap and water and make it into a solution and spray it on the perimeter of your house, it like keeps the meese away. But it's like there could be a little business there. Like it could be one of 6 things someone does, which is like the preventative work and then the get the mouse out of the house. But I'm not the only one dealing with the mouse in the house. I know it, you know. If just a little story to paint the picture of how wild it can be out here. There was a mouse in a property of mine that had been vacant for a little while. So this mouse is big, and I didn't know that was going on. I let my friend stay in the house. He sees the mouse. The next day, we go into the house. We're like, okay, let's take care of this mouse situation. Well, guess who already took care of it? A big fat rattlesnake.
Really?
Oh, I don't know how it got inside the house. We still do not know how, but the rattlesnake in the middle of his belly had this extra big old bump from you know. So that my point being that like there's services that we need. There's one example and no one's doing it, and it's like where the rubber hits the road, you know.
I love it. You know, the letter D with an apostrophe, like, you know, the slang, but it demouse your house.
Right, yeah.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's cool.
I was thinking about the hire a cat scenario. There's a cat squad.
Yeah, and it's funny you say the cat squad, because someone was already talking about the Chihuahua squad that we have that patrols the neighborhood. So I like that. Hire a cat. So funny. Okay, I got this up now.
It can be a whole series. The cat your house, you know, the snake your house, the mouse your house. Anyway, yeah. Well, that's an interesting idea. I mean, I really like the idea of the localness, the cultural appropriateness of the of the problem and the solution.
Right.
And then to do things that aren't just poisoning. You know, you got natural.
Exactly.
That'd be so fun, you know.
And these could all be conversations that could be had there at Leo's with people who are enterprising, looking for some new revenue opportunities. And that sounds fun. Because that's just one example, but there's a zillion.
Yeah, so see where, let's see on there, go to the, oh, so yeah. Relocalize, I'm gonna have to go fix that right now. That's in, what is that in? Mark, relocalize. I usually do a better job. What is that page called? Relocalize infrastructure. I'm just surprised. It's so unlike me. See if I left it. Oh, I know why. Because when I've been putting these in here, you know, in the patterns, I've not been putting a link so you can edit it, which is too bad. Let me see if I can find. Let me just do infrastructure. I think it's somewhere else. Infrastructure.
And I don't know if we're going to have time on this call today, but I would love to hear what y'all are learning with all the work that you're doing.
Yeah, let Kerry talk about that, and let me see if I can't find this. Because it's no big deal. But Kerry, yeah, I'd love to hear.
Are you learning stuff, Kerry?
She's watching the rest of us learn.
Well, yeah,
learning too. Yeah,
I'm learning how to teach. Well, how to share, I guess, rather than teach. So we got, I would say there are 15 senior leadership team members who, because the whole project is not about us doing stuff and creating models for them. It's about transferring skills so that they can do it for themselves. But this is an interesting thing when you've got really senior people who are used to being able to do things, yeah, and used to believing that they understand everything about what they're doing. So, and the big issue around this, Chris, is you're pretty unusual, yeah. You just went like that, and you just got it, yeah. But a lot of people don't. They find it very difficult to think in variables, and they find it very difficult to think then about relationships and to follow, you know, a simple set of rules, guidelines. So it's been really interesting. I would say out of the 15 of them, there are maybe 4 who have got the wherewithal, you know, the personality, the way of being in the world, to pick it up fairly straightforwardly. For the rest, there's probably going to be, there'll probably be some of them that don't get it, and there'd be another 2 that'll probably not get it, and then the rest of them, it'll be, you know, how much practicing do they do? But this big thing about not looking stupid, and we all look stupid when we're learning something new, don't we? But there's this real thing about not wanting to look stupid. There's something else which is also about, I think that they're connected, about the time then that's given to it. So and it's ironic that probably the people that need this the most are probably the people that are least likely to invest the time in it, and yet they could create more time for themselves if they were to use this and commit to it. So this is a big thing. And some of the things that we've learned about are that it's probably better if people learn together. You know, the more that we've had people bringing other people in, I think that takes away some of the problem about, you know, looking silly or learning something new. When you've got 2 people learning it, it's a lot easier than feeling, oh, I can't do this and I'm on my own, so I'm going to abandon it and do something different, you know. So there's a lot of learning about that. We're really grateful for you having introduced us to Miro. I've used it before, but the fact that we then used it, because it's great for having them practicing with their different diagrams in different parts, and then everybody being able to see other people's parts, so that ultimately when they bring it together, you know, they have got an overview of the whole in a way that they've not quite seen before, you know, so they're seeing other people's thinking. It's like exposing your own thinking. And I think that's another challenge for people, having their thinking completely exposed and made visual. So yeah, we're learning a lot. There's a lot of tension where, you know, the tension is for at times just to step in and do it, you know, because it would be quicker, you know. This is always the problem, isn't it? If you end up doing it, then they never learn and they become dependent, and that's just what we don't want. So I think we're just now seeing a route for how, from these senior people, we could get a route into their communities, the communities that they serve, because that's really what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Right?
What did you find on the route there? Because that's there's some juice there, probably.
Do you want to say, Mark? I mean, essentially, we had finally had a meeting. She's been one of the last people to have a session with us. The lady that is responsible for community health workers in their area, because community health workers are kind of the link between the organisation, you know, and the community. So I think it will be through that route.
Yeah, they couldn't do a causal loop diagram without including the client, the person, the citizen, because that's their job, right? Everyone else is quite happy to never mention the patient, client, and just talk about their own organization. And you know, we do a lot of models that we don't ever show them because we're teaching them, but we also want to understand the situation.
Yeah.
I've got one I did last week, but it's all around the patient, you know, which is actually what I learned here in 2001 as well from the patients. So anyway, that's good. But there's a couple of artifacts, and I put one of them. I'm looking in our shared Miro site. I don't know if you noticed it, but there's 2 shades of blue. It's a process, a 5-step process, and I think that some version of that, kids don't require that much detail. Kids just get it. The adults, this is what I've learned, myself being one of the worst, you know, have to find a way to do this that cleanly separates it like a boning knife, you know, from our prior modeling experiences. Because our prior modeling experiences really allow you to throw anything on the model anytime you want, connect it any way you want. And that does not create a causal loop diagram. In fact, Kerry, when I was walking yesterday, I was thinking about just constantly using the metaphor of you can't unfry an egg. You can't unfry an egg. You can't take a model you've already built and turn it into a causal loop diagram. It's not possible. For the same reason, I'm a chemist, so I know what frying an egg means. You can still bend the egg, you can cut the egg, you can do certain things with the egg, but it's got too many crosslinks to be able to be reorganized in the way that it needs to. Anyway, I'd love to have you, you know, when you have time, to try to use or look at that blue,
Sure,
you know, thing I'm talking about. And I think that some version of that will show up for the kids, I hope.
And on that See the Systems program that we've been talking about wanting to do, right? You know, the work of building the core of the students who are showing up on a regular basis has been part of what we wanted to do before we got to that point. So now we have, let's say, consistently ish, we have 4 students who come, and so it could be possible that we did it a little multi-generational, where if it was like the 4 students plus Miracle and myself, now there's 6 of us, but I'm wondering if we want to wait until there's more students involved, or if that's enough to get going based on what you think. But that'll tell us if we want to do this sooner or later.
What ages are the
High school.
four that you have? High school,
Yeah.
right. What's your own thinking about this and their capacity?
Well, they're engaged, and there's enough going on now that they're interested, so capacity wise, I see it being there. But I what I don't know about is, like, sometimes there needs to be like a critical mass of participants for it to really go, and that I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, I mean, technically there isn't a minimum number, but it's always more interesting if you've got a number of groups, because then they can see each other's work. Whereas if it's one group of four,
right,
it's, there's less degrees of freedom, if you like, for what they decide to do. Because I think splitting into, if they were splitting into two groups of two, it doesn't really have the feeling of a team anymore when there's just two.
No.
So I think in an ideal world, it would be nice to have a few more people, but maybe without even mentioning it, do they have common interests? Do the four of them have things that concern them in common?
They all care about the town. When I asked them what things like they would want to do to make the neighborhood better, I'll ask again, but at the time, like, one that came up was there's a road that one of the students lives on, and they're speeding, like people speed on the road, and they'd like to make it safer. Was one of the things that came up. And then I think they're all interested in, like, using technology somehow. Like, the project we're working on right now with them is they want to build a wearable computer. So that's like where they're all galvanized currently in their interests. Right.
Yeah, I mean, speeding on roads is an interesting system. It would be an interesting causal loop diagram, that's for sure.
You get the government involved. That's kind of cool.
You're gonna get a much deeper understanding of what causes that, and what your options are in terms of potential ways of intervening in it. That's for sure.
I have an idea. My own method, which Kerry will validate or not, is falling into you start with 6 questions, and we've done that. All 15 of these executives, we've had an hour of interviewing them, and then of course it's in a business context, but it could be adapted. Then with Sophie VSM, they're very quick. We basically 10 minutes to 2 minutes to explain. Then they go through, and without any hesitation, they colorize the whole diagram, including the subparts down at the bottom. So you and I and Kerry, we could adapt that for you. And I don't see any reason not to give each of these kids the same respect that we're giving these executives, where you would, and if you recorded it in Leo's, with their permission, their parents' permission, and then, I think what you would discover, like I discovered 8 years ago in Medford, you end up with what would be the best sales pitch ever. When you get people talking about what they care about, and I keep asking them questions until I want to cry. I don't mean because I'm frustrated, because what they tell me is so meaningful, so touching. So you could try that out. And then once I have those two things, then in our experience now, and in the way I'm thinking forward, they've got 6 contexts, so they're thinking bigger, and down at the bottom you're saying what's going on now and how do you wish it was. So it's the top to the bottom, and then I think that hour would be well worth it. And then when you do a Sophie diagram of whatever it is, town, whatever is appropriate, doesn't matter, it's a generic model. You could decide on the fly. then they start going, oh yeah, I see I see this whole thing, and I see the areas I want to work on. And then from there go, well, which of these red things, that you think need work, which one do you want to do causal loop diagrams on? And I think it's always a surprise. And I think there you would find the way to get more students. It would just evolve out of it. Because when you get to the who, the why and the who, they're going to start naming the people that would be good to have in the class with them. And so I think, in this case, it's 4 hours, and we've never, because it's so personal, we haven't, and it's in a work setting, we've done them individually, but in a community with kids, you could probably do them together. So you might do an hour or 2 or 3, with those 4 kids, and let them hear each other. And that's the way I've done it with boards, right? Is like that. So that might be really, really interesting. I'm not talking about graphing it. I'm just talking about recording it, listening, maybe taking notes, and then see what happens. And then let that be the preamble to actually learning causal loop diagramming with Kerry. And then to finish mine off, then I go to the various tools that help you build processes, get something done. And so that would be a real interesting, if we got to that stage in your community with civil society, it'd be really interesting now to say, oh, which one of the tools can we vernacularize so that normal people could use them to get stuff done.
And I get excited when I image this out further, and then I'm seeing like us doing the same process for like a multi-generational group of people, where it's like one of the students in the tech club who's leading the 6 questions. It's like it's easy to see that happening. And I think if we do the 6 questions over time, let's say in the next few weeks here, then we'll start to see if there's enough of a spark there to then justify getting y'all involved in us doing a See the Systems program. And especially on that who, if they start getting other students of theirs, other peers listed, then okay, now we might have something. We might have enough to support 2 or 3 teams.
Well, I think you broke the glass there when you said, can it be other than students? Because Kerry and I, for a couple of years, have bandied around the idea that working age parents are not the best, choices, because they're bound to the system they're in. It's threatening, actually, to look at it. But if they could find others, which, grandparents, they may not be grandparents,
like that,
but people who could play with them going forward, then you've got the adult people who know how to get money, to know how to get things done. But it's being led by the kids.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be real interesting, and having them learn it together. And, there'd be a lot of learning there. How do you get the older people to not talk as much? I mean, I'm learning that the hard way.
I'm just thinking of a couple of other things, Mark, and one of them is retired school teachers.
Oh yeah, and we have a few. I'm thinking of right now who are awesome.
Yeah, retired school teachers. And then the other thing was, have you done anything to try to incentivize the existing kids to bring in some of their friends from school? Because that would be, another way of enlarging the group and getting some diversity.
Think of it like diving. You shouldn't go scuba diving without a partner. You shouldn't go causal loop diagramming without a partner. And don't let them pick partners that are already in the group.
One thing would be to say that, if they want to do this, that in order for it to happen, we need to bring some more people in to make it effective.
Yeah.
So if they want it to happen, then yeah.
Cool. And if the will's not there, then that's okay for now. So,
and what about another thing is, you've got high school kids. It would be great if there were some younger kids, some middle school kids. Yeah.
6th grade, 7th, but not 8th, I think, in that period between middle. What is your middle school, or do you even have middle schools?
Yeah, we do. What is it? I think it's 7th, 8th, and yeah,
That'd be it.
7th, 8th, 7th, 8th. Maybe
Yeah,
it is.
that's what it was where I, grew up. Most places here, it's 6th, 7th, and 8th. But yeah, 7th graders would be great. Because as Kerry, there was an interview, 2 days ago with this really interesting woman who was taught in inner city schools in Washington, DC, but she's from, I don't know where, South Carolina or someplace. Smart. And I think something, her working with Kerry, something may come from that. But you certainly got the idea that, teachers, retired teachers who were frustrated with the shackles that were put on them might really like doing this.
Yeah. It's not all teachers, is it? But she's quite particular. She's got some fire in her belly, and she disagreed with the way that she was having to teach. So now, freed of those shackles, she's got the opportunity to try and do something different.
So whenever you want to take a different tangent here, click on that link, share your screen again and click on that link, and then we could just spend 5 minutes.
Mission critical. Are you seeing this here?
Yeah.
No, you're not sharing your screen. Are you? Okay.
Yeah, I'm seeing it, Chris.
Okay.
I just need to go find it then. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Wait. Oh, I see. I'm looking at my screen. Scroll down a little bit. Keep going. You want to get underneath it. Okay. No. Go up. Wait, stop. That arrows diagram right there. Right. Click on that arrows diagram. Except for cookies. Done. Yeah. Now, and let's just go around this, or you go around it. We don't need to read it out. But when you're thinking about your world there, so housing, click on housing.
I'm assuming it's an infrastructure.
Click on anything that looks like something you might want to do.
Okay, let's
housing's top left.
Food. That's great. So now go over to the side where it says node color. On the right, down halfway down, 3/4 the way down, node color. Click on node color, the FFF, and pick I don't know, whatever color you want. Maybe the status of housing, red, green, or yellow, or something like that. I mean, I just want to highlight the ones that you're interested in.
Okay, well, let's go with this little color for now.
Yeah, perfect. Now just keep going around the thing. And you might end up choosing, because this will be yours, you can do whatever you want with it. You might end up choosing colors that represent the duration of time. You might end up with green for quick things, you might
hey, that's interesting. Yeah.
But we can just get through land. We've got that one. So make it, I guess, do them all purple for now. Yeah. And then just look around, because these should be jobs. Okay.
Right. Yep.
Because somebody's going to have to run that land trust. I mean, there's a job there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's going to be all purple by the end of it.
Your Airbnb prices are quite high in that town. I must tell you, there's only a few of them. They're quite expensive.
I'm glad you're checking it out. We could always give you the inside track friends and family deal. I'm sure, like, my mom has an Airbnb and we can give you a better price and stuff. But yeah, that's part of the issue of why people aren't finding the inventory, right? Because they're making more on the Airbnb short term. Let's say for now that we're just going to go with these for now.
Talk to me before you leave. Just talk to me about transportation in that town. How do people, I mean, is everyone driving cars?
Everyone's driving cars. People drive. It's like our culture to like drive your car 30 seconds to somewhere. So that's the modern culture at this point. When my grandfather lived here, no one had cars really. There was like one guy who had a car. But if we want to go somewhere, like there's no like Airbnb, or sorry, there's no like Uber, Lyft equivalent. There was some guy who started a thing.
Ooh, there's an opportunity.
No, for real. No. And also like the idea of like DoorDash, or some of those where you go buy things and then deliver it to the door. Like that's something that we don't have here that I'm sure would be of interest to people, especially if we could cut out the middleman in the process of these things. But those are services that we currently don't have. There is no public transportation here at all. And then there's always an issue of like going to and from the valley, where I think 60% of the working adults commute out of town.
Yeah, no, there's some real opportunities there. And the one thing I've always thought is, in Seattle, they've got all these damn things. And I've often thought the best solution would be a multi-block coalition where 2 or 3 or 4 blocks own say a pickup truck, because I mean, a lot of people have cars, but I mean, down there, probably a lot of people have pickup trucks, but a lot of times you want to haul something, but you don't want to own a pickup truck. But you could also drive a pickup truck. So, you could have a scheduling app, where people can basically co-own it, or maybe have a local entrepreneurship that owns all of the pickup trucks in the town, but they're organized by neighborhood or something like that. Because transportation is a lot of cost, a lot of money to own these vehicles. And the other thing I'm interested in is, I mean, you guys live where it's pretty goddamn hot. I mean, it's good you're 2,000 some odd feet. But I'm just wondering about, heating and cooling and that kind of stuff. And does that have to get done by somebody out of town, or do you have local people to do it?
We have a little bit of local activity happening there. Like the main AC guy that people throw around, his name and number, lives out of Apache Junction, which is about 40 minutes away. And we have some capabilities to do like smaller scale AC stuff here locally, but there's a big opportunity there for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, I think.
Oh, Mark, just one other thing on the transportation thing is right now, like we're looking into at least having preliminary discussions about the idea of getting a van that is strong enough to pull a trailer, and to potentially have the nonprofit or someone own the van that is willing to then allow other people who are qualified to hook up a trailer and then drive the van, because we need like supply runs at this point for projects, not just Regenerate Sonora, but like people in general doing projects. Like once a week, we need someone driving over to Lowe's and bringing a bunch of materials back at this point. So that's just like an interesting one that you bring up, because we need it like right now. It's like we're working with a handyman here who's going to do a supply run for us this week, but
Your competitor is U-Haul. Do you have a U-Haul thing there in town?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
if it were me, I would just look at U-Haul, because
good idea.
I've found U-Haul to be quite reasonable.
Yeah.
I mean, moving my kids to and from college and stuff, rent a truck, go do it.
True.
I mean, like somebody brought up yesterday, you don't want to displace local businesses, because U-Haul it's always loaned, not always, but usually owned locally. It's just a franchise, right? So
Yeah.
you want to figure that out.
True.
You might be getting that. They might want to be an affiliate and actually give you advertisement or money or whatever, because you make it clear that U-Haul can help community projects or something like that. I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah. No, that's good. I mean, that way simplifies things. And I could talk to our grocery store owner who also does the U-Haul outside of the grocery store. So could talk to them about it. And that'd be way easier.
Yeah, and maybe they give people a break that are affiliated with, there's some win-win available in a town the size of yours. Cool. Well, And all I really wanted to, I mean, there's so much going on. You know, I don't know what your timeline is, but I wanted to, the two things that I want, and you know, last night I'm going, Mark, shut the fuck up. Don't try to get Chris to do anything for you. The thing is to see how to help Chris. And that I do have to keep reminding myself of that, because I am who I am. But I wanted this just so that you could discuss it with other people and you'd have a tool to look for entrepreneurship. Because my interest is creating jobs for these things. It's not fixing the things, it's creating local jobs, because all these are already working, you know, but can you get, what I would want is an inventory. I would want to identify the ones where you're paying outsiders to do these things.
Yeah.
Here, garbage, who's getting paid to do your garbage? I'll bet you that I bet somebody in Phoenix is getting paid to collect your garbage.
Yeah, you know, and yes, and I think about like security, like how many of our police officers live in town? Like very few, you know. This gets really interesting for the discussions that can happen. I'm not sure where we'd put mouse control, but we could find a place for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting thing, isn't it? Security from mice.
We have like two plumbers. They're both brothers, and it's like they're not like officially qualified. They can get the job done, but you know, if you can't talk to them, then good luck finding a plumber. You have to call from out of town, and they cost an arm and a leg.
But see, I would want to talk to those two guys. This is a metaphor for all situations. If you got local people, basically do something like the 6-question interview, sort of hiding the infrastructure, but go take them out to coffee and find out what's bugging them. Because if the community were to help them get certified, understanding that they then would train other kids to become, because I got to tell you, if I were advising my kids today, not that they listen to me, but if I had like nieces and nephews who listen to me, I would tell them to become you know, electricians or plumbers.
Me too. I mean, it's just like you can charge a good wage, and people always need it. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, I think this is good enough I just think this model, you know, there are lots of other pages there about this stuff, but this model is probably the least noisy, the most understandable to pick and choose from. And, you know, if it were me, I'd print one of these up white, you know, with nothing, and, you know, put it on the board and have people color it or make notes. Just
when we think about like what we're doing with entrepreneurship, what's the program look like? It's easy to see how like the first X amount of time, 3 months, whatever, is like having discussions with people who care about these topics, who are interested in finding possible opportunities to start some kind of business. And you know, that's like a month of getting into that, and then from there seeing what starts to form based on those discussions. That there's like another one of like helping people to formalize what they need. Like I'm just thinking back to these plumbers again. I asked the one of them to give me a write-up, so that way I could, like an invoice, right? But he writes a whole narrative. It's like he's got a piece of paper and hand wrote a story about like what happened, which is great. But like I want an invoice that says what was done, how many hours, what materials used, how much that cost, and a total at the end. And so I was helping him with some different invoicing apps on his phone. And like, you know, that's another aspect of things that we could be doing to help people with. We know of good tax people, good insurance people. So
yeah,
so
cool.
there are things there. It'd be helpful to get a sense of how we might lay out the programming, which would be like a series of like some kind of developmental process of like, okay, entrepreneurship, where are we at to some kind of more structure by the end of it.
And Kerry created this, and this was the original, you know, I don't know how much got updated here, but this was the original sort of layout for an 8-session course that they did globally online. She and a guy who now, how many companies had he created? I mean, he was phenomenal.
Lots. Yeah, he was a serial entrepreneur. But due to his family circumstances now, he has gone to work, he's employed now. He wanted, he needed some security with what was happening in his family. So
I get
But
that.
anyway, I just put it up there, not as even a template, but just to, you and Kerry can talk about it or whatever. But I really think a lot of people would come to an entrepreneurship course that was meaningful, practical, and led to work, led to creating something. And if you had essentially Leo's or Regenerating Sonora, I mean, to me, it should be under Regenerating Sonora, and Leo's the place you come and meet.
Right.
Okay, but anyway, where people could start messing around with this and saying, well, what would we need to learn? And then it's a feedback loop to get better and better. Use the first month or two when you're talking to people to design the curriculum, do what we did out in Ferndale, where you ask the students what they want to learn, because that's the best way to get the right curriculum.
Well, and also, like you talked about before, Mark, doing the like a Sophie diagnostics and to see where there's like the common red marks. It's like, okay, these are obviously areas of focus that need to be looked at.
Indeed.
Do you need to get off? Because I still want to find out what you were saying about currencies. I don't have my phone in front of me now, but you sent a link on local currencies. So
I'm fine up until 4.
Yeah.
So the next half an hour.
yeah, I can stay to the top of the hour.
Well, I don't know. When I came home, and was thinking about the conversation, and so it's it's half baked. I mean, anything about local currencies is half baked.
Yeah.
Okay, by its very nature, because whenever it works, it's going to be so damn local. It's not a thing you can say, oh, go do what I did. It's not like that. You look at the towns and the places where they're doing it. It is always very, very, very particular why it worked, because you can't transplant it. But I was just thinking, I mean, I take you seriously, and it's always engaging. So I was just thinking about, well, I mean, this is my train of thought. Okay, Chris needs, to get some money from this or some value from this. I said, well, okay, we talked about how you could get US dollars, but how could we get in value that isn't US dollars, but is real? In other words, he can get stuff he needs through that. And so I started thinking, well, what if, because this is definitely half baked. It's not even half baked. I haven't even taken it out of the fucking refrigerator, right? The ingredients. But where my mind was going is that here's where it ended up. I go to Leo's for something that attracts me, whatever it is. I'm walking in the door at Leo's because I've chosen to go there, and I have to pay to walk in the door. So I can either pay with an IOU, or I can trade in an IOU, but there's no US dollars ever involved. So if I come and listen to music there, I owe you, I was thinking about it, even if the music goes on for 4 or 5 hours, I probably owe you $1 an hour, a time dollar. That's what I pay to get in, is I literally sign an IOU over to you with my name on it. So then I owe you, and it should have my name and my email address. So I know I owe you. And so you have a way for me to see what's possible to do there to help. And so then I pay off my debt, that way. So that was a really, I ended up going from the big idea of let's and all this currency and shit. I'm going, well, really, what is that? It's an IOU that's fungible. You can use it elsewhere. I'm going, I don't know that I want it to be fungible with Leo's. I actually want them doing something for Leo's. And then you start saying, well, there are other things you can do to pay back. You can help teach this course. You can, it's worth 2 Leo's dollar hours, if you go, the next time you come, you bring 4 people with you, whatever, you have a game. Since there's no threat, there's no money, it's an IOU, you're never going to call a lawyer to enforce. You start getting something going that creates more and more relationship, more reason to come back. And, with your skills and so forth, you might well you'd want to at least have their email address so you
Mm.
can tell them, remind them that they owe you, and here's something you find interesting. It's never going to be you're the debt collector, but it's like, here's something we thought you might be interested in doing.
Here's an opportunity.
And I thought that might actually be the best way into local currency anyway. is
Yeah,
to do-
right.
And I was thinking about your art person there. Create a beautiful, interesting hour piece of paper, the bill, the thing. And of course, you want a place to sign it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you
That
want
makes
it to be an IOU.
Yeah.
But I don't know, that was just all as far as I could get, but before I started listening to horrible news. This is my main entertainment these days, is seeing what's going on in Ukraine and elsewhere. But yeah, that was it, because I think in the end, if we could find a way for it to evolve that way. I mean, in my notes, I was also going, well, which grocery store, I was trying to think which businesses would be willing. The way this can work is that the businesses only take a part of the payment in local currency. And it's really the part of currency that they would be willing to pay for advertisement anyway. So it's usually 5 to 10%. So I thought, what if you started with a hardware store, a grocery store, a bar, places where they have a choice. They could go to Phoenix, they could go somewhere else, but if they know they can get 5%, that they can pay with time dollars. I'm talking a year from now, not now. Then they could go in and that way it can build up. But, it has to be a place where it's fungible. You'd use it from one place to another, and you start with a low percentage. And so that, that's going to take somebody there to get interested. There's not a lot to these things. There's a lot of sociology, not a lot of technology.
Well, especially if there's some way that someone in the community is helping on the supply side, then all of a sudden, or some kind of services they're providing the business, then it starts to get really interesting. Like the taqueria might not want to accept time dollars for selling their tacos, but if they know that they use X amount of time dollars to purchase the cilantro and the onions and the whatever, then now there's something there.
Yeah. And so, if you ever do get one going, I think it'll be on the back of something you did with paper, at Leo's. And then, because then people can start saying, I mean, they'll immediately go, God, I wish I could take this dollar and give it to someone. And they could, there's nothing to say they couldn't get their brother to pay off their debt.
Yeah.
Right. He can show up and do the hour. So, I mean, it could evolve that they would start realizing it could be fungible.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's two things that we could do right away that we aren't really doing. One is have a sign-in sheet when people show up, because we don't have that. We take pictures and we kind of remember who showed up when. But if we have a sign-up sheet, so we're tracking the fact that we came to Leo's, then that in of itself is a useful thing for all kinds of purposes later, but that would need to be in place. And another one is having a list of, want to help out? Here's a list of things that you could do right now to help. And we're starting to make that list with our spreadsheet stuff that we're doing, but it's not a public list anyway, and it's not articulated in a way where someone could just get it, read it, and say, okay, I could go do that.
Yeah, I think that is the first step. And then what I would do is just riffing. I would, once you got, say, 20, 30 people there, I would have something at Leo's and have them come and just talk to them about how could it be fun, literally fun, a net ad to have a Leo's currency. And what would that need to work? It's not just, us talking about it, but because if it's not fun, if it doesn't add some nuance to the thing, it'll just fall flat and it'll keep people away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If it's not fun, we're effed. Well, there's also like a bit of nostalgia that is played with here, because like I think I might have told you before how, you know, all of us as kids remember walking into Leo's and we'd like look around for something you want to get, maybe get a candy bar, and you walk over to the reception area and he'd say, "You want to put it on your Tata's bill?" "Yeah." "All right, have a good day." And I walk out with my candy bar. He writes down, you know, one candy bar, Norbert Casillas's bill. And then I have a little bill with usually with the last name, maybe first initial, last name, that anyone could see in a stack. So when I go to pay for the candy bar, he finds my Tata's bill, and then he writes down one candy bar. And then at some other point, I show up and my Tata shows up and he pays for the bill. So there's always this like interesting exchange that was taking place that's like grounded in trust, you know, and a less conventional way of doing business, for sure, at least to us now. So there's something.
Yeah. And you know, I think honestly that my gut tells me the thing that'll make it work or not is how beautiful currency is and how local it is, you know. And that's where I thought the young woman who was using part of your, I think, the one I met, you know, a year ago, she and her friends could, you could even have a contest, you know, for essentially the most beautiful. And if there were 2 or 3 of them you just you couldn't make up your mind. You could either have multiple currencies, or you could have a 5-hour or a $2 bill and a $1 bill. You know, there are things you could do depending. But let me just Ward. I want to show you something Ward's doing. I think I may have given you a link. Yeah, let me just go here. Yeah.
There we go.
But certainly don't make it look like a US dollar, no matter what.
Right.
Not in shape. And no
not in
way.
the shape even. Yeah, that's good.
Oh no, I'm thinking it goes the other direction, or it's square, or just off square.
Nice.
Yeah.
The reason I want to show you this is because one, they're already doing something like this, but this is for and what's funny about this is they're working with another nonprofit who's doing like a casino night. And the idea is if I donated $15 to the people running the casino night, then I get $15 with my face printed on it that gets used as the currency for the gambling. So it's a nice way that they're working together. But I just wanted to say that your notion of working with someone like Maya to do this thing, it's like is already in the field of possibility because of this one thing we're doing.
Yeah, and it should be something that people want to keep, you know, when they paid off their bill, you know, you want to accumulate them because they're so beautiful. And, you know, you're going to have to do lithographic printing with 4 colors. And I mean, it's not going to be, you know, I think you're going to want something that's basically beautiful, work of art. So can I share screen just for a second?
Yeah, I stopped so you can.
Okay, yeah, I just want to show you, this that Ward is working on. God, I love working with that guy. So on Sunday, I pitched him with an idea, and he went, and this is just the very beginning of what's going to happen. So here's some code that he, and the one can change this and then create a different graphic, but here's what, and he started asking about Leo's. Is Leo's a person and stuff? So, you know, I
nice
about Leo's. So this just drew this graph. Okay. The code on this page drew this graph, and I designed this graph in the tools to make this graph do what it does. They're a little bit complicated, and then you can save it. And so you can see here, you know, I mean, I have a more beautiful one because I did a lot behind the scenes. In other words, I could open this up and do a lot with it. Okay?
Sure.
And he's just getting going. But, you know, this is like Kerry and Marc. Kerry, you know, provides, you know, input into see the system. See the system is part of relocalized creativity. Marc puts input into here. Chris puts input into Leo's. Relocalize puts input in here. But what I'm trying, and this goes into regenerate Sonora, but also into Superior. It's not just that it goes into a company, but it affects Superior. And then this could be, as it were, a part of, that's a funny way to put it, United Way. So what, I was just trying to put something that's on the top of my head. I didn't really give a shit
Yeah,
what
sure.
in here to start showing how these institutions, because even a person is an institution, the way Eleanor Ostrom describes institutions. I mean, anything with a purpose that gets something done, institution.
Mm.
And so you start seeing, and since, I did a bunch of iterations here, but this one was, I think, the original was just about regen. I started with Leos and I thought, well, actually, I want to do this
Right.
one. So I started in mine. There's one that where all the connections in and out of this are red. Okay. And this is red.
Mm.
So you can see, what does it take for Regen Sonora to be effective? What does it have to work with to deal with the higher levels so that
Nice.
it has the influence that it needs? And how does it interact, with the different scales of ecology? This is the physical world. This is the ways we think about politics or
Mhm.
getting things done. And I've been, for 2 years, I've thought that the world needs a model like this because we never talk about this and this in the same breath.
That's so true.
And I just wanted to be able to situate any entity where you can have the conversations about, okay, we're doing this. Yeah, we're working with these people. We're getting this done. But what are we doing over here?
Yeah.
So that
This is
and
this is
Ward,
really interesting.
and Ward's coding it up so multiple versions of this can be added together and subtracted. That's where we're going. So if I had this page and you had another one and they had a shared thing on it, we can press a button and get the shared graph.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I'm wondering if I can dig up this spreadsheet that I was shared on, which was like some people trying to do some bioregional mapping stuff, and they were getting people with their projects and finding the interesting maps that they had and trying to put them together and finding common areas of concern. It was all kind of done in a spreadsheet kind of fashion, but like what they were trying to go for is to say like, oh, I'm a participant in the Sonora bioregion. Oh, look at all the people with it, and then being able to zoom in or out depending on what the issue was, and this is doing that.
Yeah, and we're just getting to the point, now where, I mean, was very well that everything on there is clickable and becomes a page where you can write content. And so we'll kind of have to work through like on mine. Let me just go find mine real quick. Let me just go see something recent changes. I want to, because I have a what I think, this is oh God. We really stress this piece of software pretty hard. The graph is. So I think this is probably, am I still sharing screen?
Not yet.
No, okay, let me do that again. I think this is the one I probably shared with you. Are we over here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see, if I make it bigger, you can see, and of course you can actually just make it bigger this way. It's a little too big. But I had to come up with a way to, because I didn't want these to clash with other pages, right? So I just made them I for institutional version, and that's kind of cute anyway. And I think we could do these as E's. We could come up with a naming scheme where we can use tags so that your homestead would be unique. In other words, be literally the homestead that Chris has, your property, if you wanted. So there's going to be a lot of work to be done so that when you add these together, it just doesn't turn into mush, and you want each one to be clickable. So if it's Leos, I got to go back down here, get rid of this. You can see that you could have all kind of stuff about Leos, but here, this is what, Ward asked me to kind of.
This is Sophie kind of, well.
Yeah, that's where I took it. He didn't say do Sophie. He said, create a template page for what you would want to know about an institution. I'm like a one-trick pony, so I just started saying, well, this is what I think I would want to know. And, not everyone has to put everything on there, but I definitely want a photo. So it has a geocode because you don't have to type in the lat longe. And then I'd want to know some things down here. And then here you could write about your particular, like if I was writing about my landscape, it wouldn't be the same as yours. But if you went here, you could write about your thing, you could have a sub. So we're just kind of working it out. But I can see now with Ward involved and stimulating me, within a month or so, this will be a tool that people could use.
Nice. Nice. Very nice. I'm speaking with United Way today again. So thanks for instigating that. So just even looking out on the map, there are, things afoot today in all this. So
yeah, it'd be very interesting to get enough data from United Way that we make the red thing United Way, and we have what it connects with, and you connect to it, because I learned pretty quickly you want to pair off a lot of relationships, otherwise the thing goes crazy. You want it to be a sparse. You want to make the point you want to make and not a lot of other crap.
yeah. Well, I'm interested in that. I mean, especially because regenerating Sonora, like our aspirations, even from the name, it was to be a bioregional player, eventually. So how to get there is fuzzy, and even just having some scale linkage mapping stuff is going to start to, I think, reveal some novel connections that we're not seeing right now.
Yeah, if I were stuck in your shoes, being asked to go talk to a bunch of rotaries at the national level and local level, I think you've got enough cave drawings and enough conversation stories you can tell. But for me, if people are just talking, it all evaporates. But if they have a drawing, and I think if they just realized, you don't need to give people a lot of information. If they see this drawing and they see you do 2 or 3 versions of it to make them, they go, oh my God, I don't know anyone. They would be realizing these people are putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. They're working with across, they would never have met anyone who could visualize this scale and scope of interest. I mean, you're an engaging speaker, as everyone admitted yesterday. Every time I got people to hand me millions of dollars and do what I wanted was because of a diagram like this.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't me. I'm not charismatic like you are, but it was they believed that I would do it because they saw I could draw it.
Yeah. And it is making the thinking explicit without having to about it.
Yeah, and down here is the one I'm really interested in. Okay.
Can you share again?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I always forget that I put sharing. This is the one, I didn't show you, but this is where I'm really, really quite excited. Personally, is I want to and this comes from Christopher Alexander, and I thought, oh, it's going to be kludgy, but it's not kludgy. It's fucking amazing when you say questions like United Way affects the aliveness of a nation. See, I'm trying to turn it into a causal loop diagram rather than just a diagram, right? But you got to have something that is a variable. And
the variable.
And you think, well, aliveness, but it turns out it works. For me, it really works. How does United Way affect the aliveness of a county? How does Superior, affect the aliveness, the government of Superior, you'd want it to be a little more specific, affect the aliveness of the community? How does Regenerate Sonora affect the aliveness of the ecosystem? And to me, then you can go do a causal loop diagram, because you have to say, this is the input, this causes that. But it asks the important question. And aliveness, I thought, well, that'll be too general. But it works. You don't have to say quality. And when you read Alexander's book, in the first book, he talks about I think the quality with no name. He has this big thing he goes on, and he's right. He's right. As soon as you name it, you limit it. So aliveness is you can have a large number of things coming in to create aliveness. If it was more specific, you would have lost most of what aliveness means.
Well, curious that it all makes sense, but when we talk about aliveness of the government, I go like, I don't know if that's can that even happen?
No, it's the
Is this
aliveness
funny
of the
that-
municipality. And so
Yeah.
the problem is, if this said I superior governance, you would be asking yourself a question: is it killing it, making it less alive or more alive?
Mm,
Because these are not
right.
these are
These would
these
be,
don't have aliveness in front of them. They may be deadening.
yeah.
But the question is,
Yeah.
does it, is it a plus or a minus? You know, is it a supporting or an opposing? Yeah, I know I'm just kind of getting started, but you know, I got to tell you, having watched Kerry lead 15 executives through causal loop diagramming, well, we haven't let them all through it. You know, eventually it starts rubbing off on me.
Well, I want to just make one point that is we'll see if this sticks or not, which is that we have someone I was speaking with has been advancing this moniker of biocultural corridor, and for me it does seem like a nice missing link between watershed and bioregion. Like, these are the scale wise geographically, they're massive in size differences.
I just made this shit up. This is
Oh, no,
just,
no, but
yeah,
but
put it in there.
I only bring it up to say that, like, when we like, I can see another layer in there, and it's just helpful because I can just picture it using the structure of the diagram that you've already made to say, okay, I could see the copper, like the copper corridor being like one of these other things. The copper corridor is what we call it, as the biocultural corridor, and then we're saying the aliveness of that corridor. And then, you know, from there, we can then look at the aliveness of the bioregion. And that's like easy for me to see.
Yeah, I have deep concerns that the green side is not correct. I'm no expert.
Yeah, and you weren't trying to make it pretty, you're trying to illustrate what's possible here and what the point is, but
exactly. But just having you say that, it brings up a logical question for me, and that is, when, you know, so, you know, you give me a name for that, you know, and I'll put it in here because I think it's a good experiment. But there'll be some point at which you want to have the institution touching both, that are above and below spaces, as opposed to having an infinite list. I don't know. We'll learn. But that's, you know, to me, it shows up very quickly as what's going to be the best way to do it, so that it's the most general, so most people can use it. And because what I really want is, it's the middle I want people to pay attention to. Yeah.
I'm going to have to go because I've got another call, but really good to see you, Chris.
good to see you, Kerry. Yeah, a joy as always.
And yeah.